Welcome to Cruise News, your daily update on everything happening at sea. Visit cruisenews.io to see today's stories and sign up for email alerts. Today, we are tracking a really massive evolution in the maritime industry. If you think of a cruise ship as, merely a floating hotel that just ferries you from port to port, it's definitely time to update that definition.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because across the board, we are seeing this distinct shift. The vessel itself is, it's becoming a dedicated event campus, a synchronized celebration venue, and really a highly active, comprehensive resort.
It really is a fascinating operational pivot. I mean, for decades, the industry's whole model was entirely focused on the destinations. The ports of call were the stars, and the ship was really just the transportation to get you there.
Right.
But when you look at the deployments and the architectural blueprints that we're analyzing today, the logistics tell a completely different story. The cruise industry has realized that they control some of the most advanced, mobile, self-sustaining infrastructure on the planet.
They really do. And we're going to start with perhaps the most literal example of this new reality. Let's talk about the 20th Mediterranean Games.
Yes, the games in Toronto.
Exactly. This is a massive international athletic competition happening in Taranto, Italy, from August 21 to September 6, 2026. Usually when a city hosts an event of this scale, they have to build this sprawling Olympic-style village, just to house the athletes. But Taranto is taking a completely different approach. They have actually chartered AROYA Cruises Aroya Manara to serve as stationary athlete accommodation.
Right. And this won't be just a brief stopover. The vessel is going to berth at the Italian Navy's Chiapparo Naval Base for the entire duration of the Games. They're expecting over 3,500 participants from 26 different countries, and this single ship is slated to house a massive portion of them.
Wow, that's a lot of people to fit on one ship.
It is, yeah. Organizers are assigning up to 2 participants per cabin to make it work.
Well, I want to pause on the financial logic of this for a second, because it is just brilliant. Quotidiano di Puglia reported that the organizers secured a charter price of nearly 17 million euros for the AROYA vessel. Now, 17 million euros sounds like a fortune.
It definitely does on paper.
Right. But if you've ever looked at the budgets for host cities, building land-based athletic dormitories and cafeterias and entertainment zones, that usually costs hundreds of millions of dollars.
Right.
And worse, those buildings often just sit completely empty a year later. They become white elephants.
Exactly. So the 17 million euros is actually a total bargain for the municipality. It is essentially a plug-and-play city. And just to add a little more color to those negotiations, Ray News reported that organizers initially tried to work out a deal with Costa Cruises before they finalized this agreement for the Aroya Manara.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. But what makes this deployment truly unique is that it's not just one ship. There's actually a supplementary charter involved here. Tallink's cruise ferry, the Romantica, is being brought into house about an additional 1,200 guests.
Right, but here's the really interesting twist. The Romantica is essentially acting as the dormitory, while the Aroya Manara is serving as the dining hall and the student union. So the guests staying on the Romantica are actually going to use the Aroya Manara for their meals, their entertainment, and, their participant gatherings.
Which is a logistical feat in itself. You have to understand the sheer volume that the Aroya Manara is built to handle to make an arrangement like that actually work.
Definitely.
To give you some context on the hardware, this ship has 1,678 cabins. In maritime terms, it has a lower berth capacity of 3,362.
Let me just stop you there for a second, because lower berth capacity is one of those industry terms that gets thrown around a lot. And for the listener who might not be totally familiar, what exactly does that metric mean? And how is it different from maximum capacity?
Oh, that is a great question. So lower berth capacity assumes exactly 2 people are staying in every single cabin, sleeping in the standard beds, which are the lower berths. It's basically the baseline metric the industry uses to measure a ship's standard occupancy. But almost all cabins have, pull-out sofas or bunk beds that pull down from the ceiling. When you fill every single one of those extra beds, that becomes your maximum capacity. So while the Aroya Manara has a lower berth capacity of 3,362, its actual maximum capacity at full occupancy is over 4,500 passengers.
Okay, that makes total sense. So it's galleys, it's dining rooms, the waste management systems. They are physically engineered to support 4,500 people simultaneously. So absorbing 1,200 athletes just walking over from the Romantica for dinner, that is well within its daily operational limits.
Exactly. It operates precisely as a central campus hub.
But I do have a question about the itinerary management here.
Hmm.
You don't just find a massive cruise ship sitting idle in a parking lot somewhere. The Aroya Manara was originally built as the world dream, right, before Cruise Saudi acquired it in 2023.
Yes, that's correct.
And currently, it is actively operating a highly profitable 7-night Eastern Mediterranean circuit out of Istanbul, hitting major ports like Piraeus, Rhodes, and Alexandria. So how does a cruise line justify pulling a ship entirely out of its regular revenue service just to park it in Italy for 3 weeks?
Well, it comes down to guaranteed revenue versus variable revenue. I mean, yes, you interrupt the standard passenger model, but in exchange, the cruise line gets this massive guaranteed centralized contract.
Right, there's no risk.
Exactly. There is no marketing cost to fill the cabins for those 3 weeks. There is zero fuel cost for sailing between ports because it's stationary.
Yeah.
It is 17 million euros of just locked-in revenue.
Wow.
And once the Mediterranean Games wrap up in early September, the ship simply unties its lines, makes a repositioning voyage from Istanbul back to its home port of Jeddah in mid-September, and resumes standard operations. It perfectly illustrates how modern vessels have the technical frameworks to instantly support land-based mega events without missing a beat.
It really is like dropping a fully staffed, multi-thousand-room hotel right where you need it and then just sailing it away when you don't. But transitioning from an anchored event hotel in Italy, I want to talk about what happens when cruise lines realize they don't even need a host city to create an event.
Right, they just do it themselves.
Exactly. They are turning the vessels into mobile event venues for large-scale, synchronized celebrations. Carnival Cruise Line is currently rolling out its America 250 program.
Yes, and this really represents a fascinating shift toward community-integrated programming. On July 2, Carnival hosted a massive home port celebration at Jacksport's Dames Point terminal aboard the Carnival Elation. And what is notable here is that the Elation is currently the only cruise vessel departing from Jacksonville.
And they did not hold back on the visuals for this.
Yeah.
If you were boarding the Carnival Elation that day, you were greeted by a 40-foot patriotic bald eagle inflatable right on the top deck.
A 40-foot inflatable eagle on the top deck of a moving ship is certainly a statement piece.
It is entirely surreal. I mean, imagine just driving over the Dames Point Bridge and seeing a 4-story bald eagle floating down the St. Johns River. They also had Dr. Seuss's The Cat in the Hat wandering around in patriotic attire.
Naturally.
Right. But jokes aside, the core of the event was incredibly community-focused. The attendee list brought together local veterans, first responders, officials, and business leaders. Carnival's president, Christine Duffy, released a statement specifically noting that the intent was to celebrate the local community and thank those who protect freedom. They even distributed these limited edition America 250 challenge coins specifically for the military attendees.
And you know, this wasn't just a one-off PR event in Jacksonville. Carnival executed a highly synchronized fleet-wide rollout. They're physically painting from sea to shining sea bow crests on their ships, starting with the Carnival Magic and Carnival Legend.
The onboard programming is incredibly expensive, too. We're talking patriotic deck parties, balloon drops, strawberry shortcake, limited edition America 250 Coca-Cola cans, and a custom America's Cruisin' beer.
They really went all out.
They did. And they also implemented a rather touching protocol for all sailings during the week of July 4. On every single cruise, one military family is presented with an American flag that was actually flown over the U.S. Capitol, and veterans and active duty guests receive commemorative pins.
It is a comprehensive, meticulously planned programming effort across their entire domestic deployment network. But the operational climax of this America 250 celebration is what truly highlights the industry's shift.
Yes. This is where the logistics get totally mind-boggling to me. Carnival scheduled synchronized ship gatherings for fireworks on July 4th. On the East Coast, they clustered 7 massive ships near Celebration Key on Grand Bahama.
7 ships.
7, just to list the hardware involved here. That is the Carnival Venezia, Carnival Elation, Carnival Conquest, Carnival Glory, Carnival Pride, Carnival Sunrise, and Carnival Freedom, all in one place.
Unbelievable.
And at the exact same time on the West Coast, 3 ships, the Carnival Radiance, Carnival Firenze, and Carnival Luminosa, they clustered off San Diego for the Big Bay Boom fireworks. This is in addition to their earlier home port events, like the June 28 gathering on the Carnival Pride in Baltimore and the July 2 event on the Carnival Paradise in Tampa.
It is just an immense scheduling undertaking.
But how do they actually do it? I have a major factual question about this. If you group 7 specific vessels off Grand Bahama and another 3 off San Diego simultaneously, how does maritime traffic control handle that? I mean, how do you coordinate 10 massive ships clustering in the open water without them colliding, all while passengers are distracted by fireworks.
Well, that is a magic of modern maritime technology and, frankly, years of advanced itinerary planning. First, you have to understand that these ships operate on carefully timed, staggered rotations to avoid overwhelming any single port of call. So rerouting 7 ships to the exact same coordinates requires mapping out those routes years in advance to ensure they don't disrupt their downstream port schedules.
Okay, so the calendar is sorted out early, but what about the physical water?
Physically, they rely on something called dynamic positioning. Instead of dropping anchor, which would just be a logistical nightmare with 7 ships in that close proximity, the captains use the ship's GPS combined with azimuth thrusters that can rotate a full 360 degrees.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so the ship's computer talks to the thrusters to automatically counter the wind and the ocean currents. It keeps the vessel virtually locked on a specific GPS coordinate without ever dropping an anchor.
That is incredible. So they are essentially hovering in place in the ocean.
Precisely. They establish a very strict geofenced perimeter with maritime traffic control. Each ship is assigned a specific viewing coordinate, maintaining safe nautical miles of distance between them. By clustering the vessels at sea for a fireworks display, Carnival effectively turned the ships themselves into the ultimate holiday destination.
Right, because you aren't going anywhere else.
Think about it. The passengers didn't sail to a port to find a July 4th event. The event was physically constructed around the fleet's coordinates right in the middle of the ocean.
It makes the vessel the primary event space. It's basically a floating grandstand.
Exactly. It reinforces the broader theme of our briefing today. The ship is the celebration venue rather than just the vehicle you take to go to a celebration.
That perfectly sets up our final segment today. Building on this concept of ships functioning as destinations and primary event spaces, I want to examine how physical ship architecture is actively changing to support this. We are seeing entirely new ship classes designed from the heel up to operate as comprehensive active land-style resorts. Regent Seven Seas Cruises just released the details for their new ship, the Seven Seas Prestige, which enters service in December 2026.
This is a highly anticipated vessel currently under construction at Fincantieri in Italy, and it marks the first ship in Regent's new Prestige class. The baseline numbers here are very revealing. It is a 76,550 gross ton ship designed to hold just 822 guests.
And those were all in suites, right?
Yes, all suite. And it is supported by a crew of 630.
I want to break down those numbers because they sound impressive, but I think they really need some context. What does 76,550 gross tons actually mean for the listener? I mean, we hear the word tons and we immediately think of weight, like how heavy a car is.
That is a very common misconception. In the maritime world, gross tonnage actually has nothing to do with weight at all. It is a measurement of internal volume, specifically enclosed space. 1 gross ton roughly equals 100 cubic feet of enclosed space.
So it is a measure of how roomy the ship is.
Exactly. And when you take 76,550 gross tons and divide it by only 822 guests, you get one of the highest space-to-guest ratios in the entire industry. It means massive sprawling suites, incredibly wide corridors, and just huge amounts of public space per passenger. And that guest-to-crew ratio, 822 guests to 630 crew, that guarantees a nearly 1-to-1 service delivery.
But what they're doing with all that volume on the top decks is what really highlights the shift in onboard programming. Let's talk about Deck 14, which Regent has dubbed the Solara Sports Deck.
Yes, their first formally named sports deck.
Right, and it is a 24-hour venue featuring a full competition-sized padel and pickleball court and an 18-hole putting green. The aft section incorporates digital shuffleboard tables, mini bowling, chess, bago, and covered ping pong. There are even dedicated spaces for sunrise and sunset yoga.
Wesley De Silva, the president of Regent Seven Seas Cruises, pointed to the Solara Sports Deck as absolute proof of how they are rethinking every single inch of their new ship class.
But from an engineering standpoint, this blows my mind. If you've ever been on a traditional cruise, you know the top deck is usually just rows of lounge chairs and maybe a jogging track. If you suddenly put a heavy, competition-sized paddle court surrounded by structural glass, plus a full 18-hole putting green at the very top of a ship on Deck 14, how does that not make the ship incredibly top-heavy?
Well, it requires some seriously advanced naval architecture. Putting that much active infrastructure 14 stories above the waterline means they have to offset the weight lower in the hull. They utilize highly advanced gyroscopic stabilizers to prevent the ship from rolling.
Oh, to keep it steady while people are playing.
Exactly. And they install specialized wind shear structural glass so that passengers can actually play a game of paddle while the ship is moving at 20 knots through the open ocean. They also have to heavily soundproof the deck so the bouncing of pickleballs doesn't disturb the ultra-luxury suites directly below.
Which proves just how committed they are to this concept. I mean, they aren't just slapping a net on a deck. They are engineering the entire vessel around active luxury. And the integration of these physical spaces continues as you move down the ship. Right below it on Deck 12 is the Solara pool deck.
Yes, the Deck 12 layout features a massive 48 by 29-foot two-level pool accompanied by two whirlpool spas. It also incorporates the Solara pool grill, complete with a pizzeria. What is fascinating from an architectural flow perspective is how this upper pool deck connects directly to two of their specialty dining venues.
Which ones?
Pacific Rim, which is their Pan-Asian restaurant, and Azure, a new venue designed to serve mezzo-style Mediterranean cuisine.
It sounds identical to the layout of a premium land-based country club. You finish your paddle match, walk down to the pool, and grab a Mediterranean lunch. And the schedule for the Seven Seas Prestige reflects a really global reach for this country club model. The maiden transatlantic voyage departs from Barcelona to Miami on December 13th, 2026.
Followed by an inaugural season consisting of 13 Caribbean and European cruises.
Exactly. But beyond the physical spaces, they are heavily layering in specialized additional cost programming.
That is where the hardware and the software of the ship truly merge. They have already announced 64 culinary arts kitchen classes and 25 Epicurean explorer tours for this vessel.
And there's a specific sailing that caught my eye. It's a spotlight voyage on wellness and longevity in partnership with the skincare brand Elemis. This is scheduled for August 21st, 2027. It's a Trieste to Barcelona sailing that is entirely built around Blue Zone-inspired culinary content and be-moved fitness classes. So if we connect the physical hardware, the paddle courts, the putting greens, to this highly specialized wellness programming, how does that reflect what the modern luxury passenger actually wants?
It shows a factual, industry-wide shift away from passive luxury toward highly active, resort-style lifestyle programming. Historically, luxury cruising was incredibly passive. You sat in a deck chair, you were handed a cocktail, and you watched the ocean.
Right, very relaxed.
Yeah. But today's luxury demographic wants to maintain their active wellness routines. They want to play their morning racket sports, take a culinary class on Blue Zone diets, and engage in high-end fitness programs. Redo is demonstrating that to capture this market, the ship cannot just be a beautiful hotel. It has to function as a comprehensive, holistic lifestyle resort.
It is a deliberate, massive redesign of the onboard experience to match the evolving demands of a passenger base that wants to do more than just sit still.
Exactly. And, when you look at all these reports together, from ships acting as athletic campuses to floating fireworks grandstands to highly engineered luxury sports resorts, it leaves us with a necessary and somewhat provocative consideration regarding the future economics of the maritime industry.
What's the takeaway here for you?
Well, we saw that major sporting organizations are willing to pay nearly 17 million euros to charter a vessel like the AROYA Manara for just 3 weeks. As ships become more capable of operating as fully self-contained high-tech cities, how long will it be before we see entirely new revenue models emerge outside of standard passenger ticketing?
That's a great point.
Will future cruise ship designs intentionally include modular features meant to attract multi-week corporate buyouts, or even more radically, will we see tech companies or remote work startups purchasing these massive vessels outright to create tax-free, sovereign floating cities that simply follow the good weather year-round? The infrastructure is clearly already there.
Thanks for listening to Cruise News. Visit cruisenews.io to catch up on the latest updates and sign up for free email alerts.